Welcome to Made-in-Alberta. I'm Barb Allard, and we're continuing our discussion about glaciers, global warming, and Alberta's water supply. Last time we learned how a small amount of global warming causes accelerated glacial melting. This is due to interactions or feedbacks in the climate system. For similar reasons, if we wait too long to address this problem, we may wind up with more downstream damage to our economy and environment than we expect.
If the climate changes, what does that do to the amount of snowfall falling on an ice cap? What does it do to the amount of meltwater that's produced and runs off, which obviously has water resource implications in particularly mountain regions adjacent to lowland agricultural areas like, say, the Rocky Mountains relative to the Canadian prairies.
Feedback effects in the climate system can be positive or negative, either enhancing or cancelling out the effect of the global warming that instigates them.
We're at a point where the positive feedbacks are probably dominating, and we're getting quite strong responses from the glaciers to the climate warming that's going on.
With more glacial melt, there's more meltwater flowing, to a point.
But of course, if you increase the melt rate, then probably the glaciers start to shrink, and ultimately you get to a point where the amount of water that's produced starts to decrease.
Overall, glacial melt contributes a small amount to our surface water supplies, but the timing is significant.
You get the peak in runoff in the spring when the snow melts, but then as runoff decreases, the glaciers start to melt. Now that's of importance in rivers like the Bow, for instance, and the South Saskatchewan, where a lot of the water is used for irrigation purposes, because the season of peak demand for irrigation is late summer when it's hottest and when the crops are coming to production. So potentially glacial runoff changes can put quite a bit of stress on the water supply system in late summer when there is actually a lot of demand for water, and that's probably where the biggest economic impact would come from.
If things get to that point, we may decide we need a technological fix.
If we're running out of water in August, well, it is possible to build dams so that we stop the water that's produced in May from draining into Saskatchewan. We hold it in the dam here, but whilst it's sitting there, hottest part of the year, we're losing a lot of it to evaporation. We also know that, when you build reservoirs, you flood vegetated surfaces. One of the consequences is you get a burst of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere as the organic matter you just flooded rots within the reservoir. So you're not actually helping the greenhouse gas and climate change situation by doing that in the short term.
It's fairly easy to cost out the price of building a dam, but do we fully understand all the costs?
You build dams, you flood valleys, you're removing, environmental services by doing that, and we really should be evaluating those costs, not just assuming that there are no costs associated with that.
Our water supply is changing in more ways than one. There is more evaporation, and there are changes to our precipitation patterns. And just to complicate things further, the demand side is changing too.
Population is growing rapidly, the economy is growing rapidly, so we're doing all this in a context where the demand for water is getting bigger and bigger all the time. At the end of the day, we're not really worried about whether it's 2 degrees warmer in July or not. We're worried about what the consequences of that are for the sustainability of the society and the economy that we have.
Join us again for more exploration into Alberta's water and weather in a warming world.